Welcome to the Health and Wealth Power Hour, the podcast that provides you with the knowledge and insights you need to achieve physical, mental, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Arlen Piggott, a business consultant who's passionate about helping people achieve a more balanced and healthier life. Each week, we'll deep dive into topics related to health and wealth, including retirement income planning, innovative healthcare solutions, alternative funded health plans, and specific actions individuals and business owners can take to gain control of their finances, have access to affordable quality health care, and achieve peace of mind. We'll also be joined by innovative experts who will share their knowledge and insights on prevalent topics. So, whether you're looking to grow your wealth or improve your health, you've come to the right place. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and empowered. Let's get started. All righty, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Health and Wealth Power Hour. Got a great show for you today. I feel like this is going to have an impact on everyone because we all have this terrible, we just do it all the time. It's this terrible thing that we do in beating ourselves up. We always, when there's not a problem, it seems like we create one. It's just one of those things that our human nature, and that's what we blame it on, right? Is that our human nature says that this is just what we do. Well, our special guest today is going to debunk that and tell us that problems are actually not natural and show us how we can keep from putting ourselves in that situation. In fact, I love the name of his podcast, and his whole coaching program and everything is Let Yourself Off the Hook. Liam Naden, thank you so much for being on the Health and Wealth Power Hour. Welcome aboard, buddy.
Thank you, Harlan. It's really good to be here.
So, Liam, let's just dive right into this thing because you have a very interesting story that you were extremely successful. We would say someone who is a multimillionaire and business entrepreneur is extremely successful. However, it didn't last. You went through some tough times and even found yourself homeless. But you learned some valuable things through that process, which made you who you are today. So tell us a little bit about that journey that got you here and that kind of aha moment.
Sure. Well, I was like, I'm sure you and everybody listening, that most of my life, I wanted to have a great life. I didn't want to just settle for a mediocre life. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be wealthy and free and have do exciting things. So I've spent many years doing that, and I had my own businesses. I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've had 18 different businesses so far in my life. And, I really worked hard on not only learning how to create a business, but also this whole thing about success. So I used to go to lots of seminars and workshops and on everything from personal development, goal setting, motivation, changing your beliefs, changing your subconscious mind, working on yourself, and, spiritual things as well, meditation and the law of attraction and all these sorts of things. So, and I achieved a lot of success. But, I remember one particular day, and this particular day, a few years ago now, I walked into the music room of the home that I just was in the process of finishing building. It was my dream home. It was a mansion. And it had a music room because I was a musician earlier in my life. And I'd always had this dream, this goal of having this house that I designed with my own music room, with my own businesses, financially free. And I remember walking in this particular day and sitting down in my music room and looking out across the mountains in the distance and knowing that I just had this home that I just built. And I remember thinking, I've made it. I've achieved all my goals. Everything that I had on my goals lists, I've achieved. I've got 2 businesses that are producing money. I've got all this freedom to do things. I've got this amazing home. I've got a marriage and a family. I've done it. I've cracked the secret to success. But instead of feeling that I was really grateful, satisfied, happy, thrilled with what I'd done with my life, I actually felt completely the opposite. I felt absolutely stressed and miserable. And I remember thinking, is this all there is? What's this all about? Why is it that I'm so stressed? Because I still have lots of problems in my life. And even though I've got all these great things, I've achieved all my goals, why hasn't it brought me the happiness and satisfaction that I thought it would? And why do I still have all these problems to deal with in my life? And it just felt, I was just almost at breaking point. And I remember thinking, or a voice saying to me or whatever, maybe it'd be better if you just lost everything, gave it all up and started all over again, because at least then you could save your soul. Because that's what it felt like. It felt like my life energy was just being drawn out of me, because I thought, it just seemed so pointless, even though I'd achieved so much. Well, as they say, you have to be careful what you think about, because literally within a couple of months, that's what happened. I lost everything. The house went, including the music room. My businesses went, my marriage, everything I owned apart from the clothes on my back, literally. And I went from driving a luxury Mercedes and sleeping in a wonderful, comfortable bed in this magnificent house. I had to move in with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in the living room of her small apartment. So that was a huge shift and a huge come down. And when I said, well, I'd be prepared to lose everything, I never really realized what losing everything actually meant. Because not only did I lose everything on the outside, but I lost everything on the inside. It was just this desperate feeling that I didn't know who I was anymore. I'd lost my soul in one sense, because I was so confused. And through that time, I used to keep asking myself two questions, because I was completely confused about what was going on. The first question was, why has this happened to me? Because it wasn't on my goals list. And I'd been to so many goal-setting workshops and read books and done courses, and I knew how to use your mind to change your beliefs and be really motivated. And I was motivated. I'd do anything to be more successful. So I'd learned so much. I had a magnificent library of books on self-help, spirituality, psychology, all of these things. I was an absolute I could quote all of the gurus about how you achieve success and how you reach your goals. But this wasn't on my goals list. And not only that, but nothing that I'd obviously tried prevented this from happening. So that was my first question. Why has this happened to me? And the second question I kept asking myself was, well, what do I do now? Because I was totally confused. I had nothing. I didn't know anybody. I had no opportunities, no money. And the funny thing was, both of those questions, it didn't matter how often I asked them, the answer was still the same. And the answer to why has this happened to me and what do I do now was the same for both. And you know what the answer was? I have no idea. I don't know why this has happened to me, and I don't know what to do. So I was in this desperate state, but it turned out to be the best thing. As they say, adversity is often the best thing, because what it forced me to do was something I would never have done in any other situation. If I hadn't been at absolute rock bottom, I wouldn't have done this, but it was the key not only to my own success, but to understanding how we really do create the results we do in our life. Not what people say that they talk about, but what actually creates your results. And that was, what I did was, I completely gave up. Now people say, well, did you let go and surrender? No, I didn't. I just gave up. I said, I'm done. I'm finished. I don't care anymore. I'm too emotionally and physically exhausted and mentally exhausted. I'm not going to try and figure anything out. I'm not going to try and work anything out. I'm not going to try and look for help or look for opportunities or do any of that sort of stuff. I just give up completely. And something really strange happened from that moment on, because things started to show up in my life. A business literally showed up. Then a new relationship literally just showed up. A great relationship, something unlike one that I'd ever had before. Then another business showed up. And then I was doing all these amazing things. I started off traveling around New Zealand, my own brand new luxury motorhome. And then we sold that and we moved to Europe. And then we bought a new yacht, and sailed around Europe for 8 years. And all through this time, things were just falling into place. And, another defining moment I remember was, I think we're in the Greek islands and we're anchored in this little bay. And if you can just imagine this, you wake up in the morning on your own yacht, you're in this beautiful bay, no one else around, and you just fall off the back of the boat, you have a swim, and you get out and you check your email and your two businesses are doing brilliantly. No, that you're managing from around the world. No problems, no stress, everything's going really well. And I remember this particular day when I got back off onto the boat and thinking, this is it. This is finally what I've been looking for all those years that I was struggling to find, is that feeling. Sometimes you just know. You know you're where you should be, and you don't have any fear or worry about the future. You just have this knowingness that you're in the right place, you're doing what you should be doing, and everything's working out the way it should be working, and you're absolutely thrilled about your life. So the thing about that was, it left me a little bit confused, because I thought, well, how has this happened? And I thought, I need to figure out how it's happened, because I want to make sure it keeps happening. I don't want to, whatever I'm doing something different, I'm doing something right. I don't want to mess this up. So that's what sent me on a journey to discover what I was doing differently, because I said to myself, how come I used to study everything? I'd take every opportunity. I was continually setting my goals and had it all planned out. I was putting all of this effort in, constantly striving, constantly learning more about how to be more successful, a real action taker. But what happened then was I had all those problems and stress. I never got to that place of feeling truly happy with my life, and then it all collapsed. And now I'm not setting any goals. I'm not making any plans. I'm not forcing anything to happen. I'm not really trying that hard, and yet everything is working. So there's something not right here. There's something very different about how we've been taught about how we create results in your life and how you really achieve success and how you achieve and reach your goals, if you like. And that's what led me into a completely different area. I'd studied so many different things, but there was an area I'd overlooked. And that when I started to look into that area, everything started to make sense about not only what I was doing differently, but what I'd been doing wrong, and unfortunately what so many people are doing wrong. And I was very interested to hear a previous episode of your podcast about why goals fail. And you said that 92% of people fail. I think it's closer to 97, 98% actually. And I've got a bit of a different take perhaps to what you explained there, but there's something else at work completely, and we've all overlooked it. And that's really my mission now, is to help people understand that. And that's what's so exciting, is because when people do understand it, they can use this way of living, if you like, that makes such a massive difference.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there, buddy. So let's kind of go back. You had success twice, right? You've had success in this particular journey you just talked about. You had success twice. Glaring success, beautiful home overlooking the mountains, music room, all of that. You lost all of that, and then you were by kind of not trying, as it were, which is kind of a funny thing to say. All of a sudden, you had success again, and some would say even greater success. You're even saying greater because it certainly brought you happiness and joy and put you in a place where you, even when you had success, the definition of success, businesses, marriage, home in the mountains, you still did not find yourself happy. You still did not find yourself in a place where you were joyful, where you said, hey, yeah, look at me. While you said I've made it, you still didn't feel like you made it because you still didn't have that joy in your life. Whereas this other time you did. So obviously there was something different. You found out there was something different. One of the things I know you talk about is you're saying setting goals is unnatural and can actually sabotage your own success. So at the end of the day, is that one of the primary reasons why this happened? Is because your brain, the way we think is not naturally designed for us to work that way? I'm just trying to put this all together there, Liam.
Well, the simplest way to put it all together, the missing link, if you like, that I'd completely overlooked and none of the gurus had talked to me about, was the fact that even though we're doing all of these things to manage our life, there's one thing that overrides anything else that we can possibly try and do, and that is nature. We're a part of a natural, physical, biological world, and it doesn't matter what you think, you can't go against the laws of nature. That's a bit like, for instance, saying, I'm going to stand on the top of a 10-story building and I'm going to meditate, motivate myself, pray, change my subconscious mind, set a goal, be determined, be motivated, change my beliefs, rewire my thinking. and I'm going to fly up in the air. Now, that's not going to happen. It doesn't matter what you do, you're going to go straight down. Try and stop your heart beating through willpower. Try and stop breathing. But we've forgotten about nature rules everything. It determines absolute, and we need to learn about how nature works if we want to succeed, because nature actually has rules about success. So nature rules, and it has rules, and it has three primary rules. I mentioned the law of gravity, if you like. There's actually three laws about biological life that we are governed by, whether we like it or not. The first one is the law of thriving. Now, if you were to ask any biological scientist, how is nature designed? What is nature there for? Why do things live, and how do they stay alive? And they all in agreement would tell you the primary function and purpose of life is to survive. All of nature is wired to survive. And because of that, it's wired to seek to be the best that it can be. Every organism is seeking to be the best that it can be, so that which of course gives it the greatest chance for survival. The better something is, the healthier it is, the greater it has a chance to survive. So nature's designed to make sure everything is constantly striving and maintaining a state of being the best that it can be. And science even has a word for that. It's called homeostasis. That means the optimum functioning of the organism. And every single species on the planet, virtually every member of that species lives in the state of homeostasis, of optimum functioning, apart from humans, and there's a reason why. So if you think we're all designed, everything is designed to be the best that it can be, why aren't we the best that we can be? Because for us, being the best that we can be doesn't just mean our physical body being as strong and healthy as it can be. It also means mentally and emotionally. So you're actually designed to be happy biologically, because when you are happy, when you are fulfilled, you are being the best that you can be. You are going to extend your life when you are happy. You're going to shorten your life when you're miserable and stressed and weighed down with problems. So why are we not all if our biological purpose is to achieve this state called homeostasis, our optimum functioning, as healthy as we can be, happy and mentally and emotionally as healthy as we can be, why aren't we like that? Well, it comes down to understanding how nature actually creates that state. And nature has provided every living thing with what I call a machine, or you could call it a mechanism, but it's more like a machine that's designed to ensure that that organism maintains this optimum state and stays there. And it's called a brain. You know, your brain, and people say, oh, the brain, yeah, it keeps you alive. It's not designed just to keep you alive. It's designed to make sure that you are the best that you can be on every level, so that you have the greatest chance to survive. So here we are. We've got this amazing machine that has one function: to make sure that you're happy, have no problems, of being the best that you can be. And every now and then we have this experience of what that feels like, where we go, wow, life is great, and you're making the right decisions. Things are flowing in your life. We call this being in the flow. And many people have described this throughout history, the state where, things, you just feel different, and you're inspired, you're creative, you come up with new ideas, you get those aha moments where you suddenly get this different idea, and everything works in your life. That's actually our natural biological state, and that's the way our brain is designed to make sure we live in. But what's the only reason why we're not living in that all the time? Well, there's two things. There's either our brain's something wrong with it, which can't be the case, otherwise, we wouldn't survive as a species. The only other possible reason is that we're not using it the right way. Because if it's simply a machine, and if it's simply designed for one purpose, which is to make sure that you are in homeostasis, functioning at your best, if you're not, it's not working right, which means you're not driving it the right way. You're not using it the right way. I mean, imagine a motor car, which is another machine. It's very simple. It just takes you from where you are to where you want to go. That's what it's designed to do. Nothing fancy. And it'll do it predictably, reliably, and enjoyably. You don't have to worry about it. However, if you don't drive it the right way, it's not going to work. Imagine if you didn't know how a motor car operated, and you looked at it and you thought, well, maybe the way to drive it is you get out from behind and you push. So you put in all of your energy and motivation and strength, and you push and you put in all this effort. What happens? Not a lot. It's a big struggle. You wear yourself out, and you don't get anywhere. And you say to yourself, well, driving a motor car is difficult, and we all know it's a problem, that it's not easy. And of course, looking around, everyone else is pushing their cars as well. Maybe so. The problem is me. I'm not strong enough. I'm not determined enough. And then one person in a million comes along to you and says, "What on earth are you doing? You don't understand how to drive it. That's not the right way. You're supposed to sit in there, press the right buttons at the right time, and enjoy the ride." It's crazy, isn't it, if you think about that as a motor car? But who's ever taught us about how the brain works? Who's ever said to us, well, maybe the reason you've got problems in your life is not because they're natural, but because you're using this machine the wrong way? Because if you use any machine the wrong way, the only thing that will happen is you'll end up with problems. A car is going to blow up, or something's not going to go right, or you're going to blow up if you do it the wrong way. You don't have problems if the machine is being used the right way. And that's why it turns out that problems are we're not designed to have problems. Problems don't help expand our life, keep us alive longer. Yeah, sure, we can learn from problems, but there are much better ways to learn than through all the heartache and pain of problems. And so problems don't have a biological purpose other than to point out to us that we're using this machine the wrong way. We're not using it in a way that it is allowing it to create this natural state of thriving that we're designed to be in.
Well, I love your analogy there with the vehicle, with the car, because that makes sense to me. Yeah, if you're not, if everyone's out there doing it the wrong way, and you're just doing it the same way as everyone else, but then you're wondering why some of these people are passing, but you didn't realize that they weren't pushing theirs; they were inside. Like, what?
If there is any such
guy doing? What's this guy doing? Look at him. He's passing everybody up. But how do we get there? I think that's the interesting part of it, is you had this epiphany where you said, okay, I'm looking back on how things changed, and you had not had the same struggles that you had on your original growth that ended up in disaster, but you had achieved greater success without the same struggles. But there's got to be more than that. And I know there is. I know that's kind of what you're going to talk about. There's more than just giving up is one thing, but you still actually, you didn't just lay on the couch at mom's house, right? You couldn't have just laid on the couch at mom's house, because then the opportunities that did present themselves would have passed you by. You had to have taken some action, but that action wasn't in the same way you had done it before. So describe a little bit more in detail what that looked like, because previously everything was in a more, once again, you went to all these different gurus, you went to all these things saying you set goals, you achieve goals, you get success. You set more goals, you achieve those goals, you have greater success. And you just kept recurring. You're doing that over and over, right? Higher goals, higher success, and then it's just a constant train. But you are always under pressure and under stress to complete those goals. When you have goals, that's naturally going to put some stress on you to complete those goals. When you turned that around and you said, I'm not going to do that, and you achieved success, give us a little more insight on what that really looked like so people can grasp that a little bit better. And then how you understood the brain to work differently, of why that works so well and still works for you so well.
Well, here's the thing, a little bit of it. You mentioned this goal idea that you strive to achieve a goal. I was like you and everybody else. I only achieved 2 or 3% of the goals that I set as well. It's not actually true to say we set a goal, then we achieve it, then we move on to the next one, because that doesn't happen for anybody, because you hardly ever achieve the goals that you set by, as we all agree, very few people achieve many goals. And you have to ask yourself, if something has a 2 or 3% success rate, maybe there's something wrong with the process. If you go to a heart surgeon, you need a heart operation, and say, what's your success rate? And they say 2%. You're going to say there's something wrong with what you do. So everybody's chasing after something that simply doesn't work. And the evidence is there to show it doesn't work. And we just need to be honest and say, this isn't the way you make things work. So the way you make things work is you understand how we operate naturally and biologically. And we mentioned the 4 parts of our brain. Now, there's a part of our brain that is designed to make sure that we live in this state of homeostasis, which means we achieve everything we want to be truly happy and fulfilled in our life. And it's what I call the creative brain. And this is not a theoretical idea. This is a physical location in your brain. But this part of the brain controls things such as your imagination, your creativity, hence the name creative brain, your resourcefulness, your imagination, your awareness, your intuition, where you get those gut feelings, that little voice telling you what you should do. It's where you get inspired. It's where you get new ideas from. It's where all of your problem-solving ability comes from. It's where, for instance, you've been struggling away, trying to figure out the answer to a problem. You've been getting all this information and trying to work it out and analyze it. And then you go away for a while, and suddenly this idea comes to you, and you go, oh, that's the answer. Why didn't I think of that before? Why didn't I think of that? Where did that come from? Now, it's important to say that this isn't your thinking brain, which is another part of your brain. This isn't your thoughts. This isn't your struggle. This isn't your effort. This is all the natural stuff. This is the thing where you meet somebody out of the blue that you never had on a goals list, and you end up marrying them. And you go, well, how did this happen? Or you see a new business opportunity, or something happens in your life. And for most people, if not everybody, all of the things that are really significant in your life are not the things that you plan for. They're not. You don't plan to meet the person you marry. Even your career, oftentimes, it's not what you had on your goals list. Something unexpected happens. So we need to understand that this part of our brain called the creative brain that is in charge of ensuring we achieve this particular state of homeostasis. But it's not our thinking brain. It's not from struggle. And in fact, all of that shuts down this part of your brain, because there's another brain state that we have, which is, so the way we're naturally biologically designed to live, we're designed to live in a state where we achieve this homeostasis with the least amount of effort, because struggle and effort are not natural either. Nature is designed, other laws of nature are the law of efficiency of energy, the minimum use of energy for the maximum result, and also the law of least resistance. The more you resist something, the slower you go. Try and ride into the wind on a bicycle as opposed to going with it. So these are laws of nature, and these are how your creative brain operates, without resistance. But what happens is when you start resisting, you activate another part of your brain. And we have developed a survival mechanism to ensure, to help us survive when we have threats or dangers. Because it's all very well to feel in homeostasis and feel good, but what do you do if you were confronted millions of years ago by a lion about to eat you? So we have this defense mechanism, this weapon. It's sometimes called the fight-flight mechanism, but it's a lot more than that. And the way your brain is designed is that you're designed to be the best that you can be, absolutely doing all the right things, except when a threat to your survival shows up in your environment. And what happens then, your brain, the way it works, is it activates a different state. It shuts down your creative brain and it activates this reactive state to get rid of the danger. And when you've got rid of the danger, it's only designed to be operated in very short bursts, just to get you out of danger. So then your brain gives you the all clear, and it puts you back in your natural state of thriving. And it's important to say this particular part of your brain, this reaction to a danger, it can only do one of four things. So it doesn't know all this creative stuff. It only knows four things. It can either make you run away, it can make you stand and fight, it can make you freeze and do nothing, hence the fight, flight, freeze. And the other thing it can do is it can have you shout out and ask for help from somebody else. That's all it can do. But what activates that part of the brain? Because you think, well, why would I use that part of my brain? Because it doesn't know the answers to your problems. It doesn't know how to do anything other than those four things. It doesn't know what your goals should be. It doesn't know what's going to make you the best you can be and to thrive. It's only there to just get you out of that danger. So you have to ask yourself, and the key point is, what activates those two parts of the brain? And what it actually is fear. Fear, which is in any of these emotions like stress, worry, anxiety, frustration, anger. Whenever you feel that, what's happening on a biological level is your brain has activated this defense mechanism and shut down your creative brain, your homeostasis brain, with all of those resources. So you can see what most people are doing wrong. They're trying to work out their life when they're stressed, worried, afraid, forcing things to happen, trying to make stuff happen, And we know what it's like when you're stressed. You're going, what do I need to be happy? What should my goals be? What can I do to get out to solve this problem? Why is this happening to me? I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. And what do? One of those four things. We run away from the problem. We stand and fight and argue with people and push harder, or we just do nothing and give up, or we ask for help and we go to another seminar, read another book, talk to another therapist or a coach. We can't do anything else but all of our wisdom, all of our awareness about who we are, or our brain's ability to give us everything we're supposed to have, it's all blocked off when we're like that. And that's why you have to do what the Bible says. Be not afraid, have faith, let go and allow. Do not worry about tomorrow, for what tomorrow will take care of itself. Do not worry about what you shall eat, drink and wear. It'll all be provided for you like it is in the rest of nature. Now, it's not saying you have to sit down, work really hard, set your goals and do everything you can, figure out what you want and do everything you can to achieve them. It's not saying that at all, because that's not natural. That's not biological to do it that way. That's all struggle, stress, inefficiency, resisting. And so that's the key. We have to learn this way to stop allowing, or to realize that when we feel these triggers, when we're triggered into fear, stress, worry, anxiety, we're blocking off our ability to make our life the way it's supposed to be. And that's why we'll never be happy. We can never create our ideal life from a place of stress.
That's extremely insightful, Liam. Extremely insightful. Now, I think what you just said is going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people. But here is what I see as the roadblock. How do we do it? How do we get off of that natural reaction of letting, because the word that you said that I think most people feel whenever all of these, regardless of what has happened to them, is they're confused. Confused, just like you were one time. How did this happen? Why did this happen? What can I do about it? I don't know what to do. I'm confused. What's my next step? How do I get out of this? How did I get into this? What can I do next? I mean, you're asking yourself all these questions, but to your point, what you're saying is that I'm asking you all these questions, but because of where I've mentally put myself, my brain can't function in the way to give me the answers, because my brain can only tell me the answer to your problem is to run away or to stand and fight or to ask for help, right? I mean, or to do nothing. I'm just going to sit here and hope it all goes away, because we all know people that's their answer, right? Their answer is, I'm just going to sit here and hope it goes away. Things will just get better around me. Well, that doesn't work either. But how do we get past that? Because all of those reactions are what most people would say. That's just a natural human reaction. But we all know people who get over those things very quickly, right? We all do know people that are able to access those answers. They can get to a creative solution very quickly. I'm sure you're one of them because you've got this figured out. But how can we get there?
Well, it's quite simple, but not necessarily easy, because we've spent a lifetime developing habits that have led us in the wrong direction.
Right.
And we've been told all of these things about life's a struggle and you have to work really hard and you have to figure everything out and plan everything and all of those things. But if you accept, and this is why I spend so much time both talking to you and your audience, and also all my work, is trying to explain a little bit of how the biology actually works. Because once you get it, once you accept that this is a biological thing, then it makes it so much easier to actually implement. And the biology is, whenever you feel fear, whenever you feel stress, worry, and anxiety, that simple emotion is what sends you into the wrong brain state. And really, there's ways to get over this. And people say, well, how could I not feel fear? How could I not feel stressed, worried, and anxious? You know, it's all right for you, Liam. You don't have any problems, or so you say you don't. But you know, what about the world today? There's so much going on. What about my life? You have no idea how bad my life is, about my situation. I can't just give up fear. Well, here's the thing. If I was to come along to you and say, here's a glass of some liquid, I'd like you to drink it. And you would say, well, what is it? And I said, well, it's hydrochloric acid. And you said, hang on a second, I'm not going to drink that. And you'd say, why not? And you'd say, well, I know it's going to kill me or at least damage me very severely if I was to touch that. And I would say, but hang on, look, no, it won't really. It's not so bad. I mean, there's people doing research on it and finding ways that if you really think hard and believe and change your mind and have the right mindset, it won't do you much. It'll be good for you, actually. There's some people saying it's actually good for you. And you'd say, look, you don't get it. You're a nutter saying that. And then I would say to you, okay, well, I'll stop being nice. I'm telling you now, if you don't drink this, I'm going to make sure you lose everything you have. You're going to end up homeless, all of your family, your friends, all your money. It's going to be taken away from you. In fact, and I'm going to come along and torture you as well. And you'd still say, look, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter the justification. It doesn't matter the reason why you're telling me I should drink it. I know that the second I let that come across my lips, it's going to ruin my life. And we need to understand that's what fear does. It doesn't matter the justification for feeling bad. When you do, you put yourself in the wrong brain state. And this is why it says in the Bible, because I thought this is interesting. I was brought up a Christian. In the Bible, it says 365 times, the most common thing it says in the Bible, 3 words, be not afraid. And it's not saying try not to worry. It's saying be not afraid. This is a biological instruction on how your brain works. If you are afraid, you activate the part of your brain that keeps you stuck. And the only way God or intelligence or whatever you want to call it can help you be the best you can be and have the greatest life possible, which is what you're here for, is if you activate your creative brain, which you can't when you feel fear, stress, worry, and anxiety. So we need to accept it's a little bit like being an alcoholic. You can't, it doesn't matter what, you can't touch the drink again or you'll go back to being an alcoholic. Doesn't matter what the temptation, you've got to get your head around finding a way to make sure you're not tempted to touch alcohol again. And it's the same with fear. You've got to find a way to stop putting yourself in a situation where you feel that's going to make you feel fear, stress, worry, and anxiety. And one of the things I teach in my coaching program is all of the different triggers that we have, most of them we're not aware of, that are making us feel bad. But here's some really simple ones. Switch off the news. People say you have to stay informed. Informed about what? How do you know it's even true? But if it makes you feel bad, it doesn't matter what it is. You have the ability to make that decision to turn the switch off or whatever it is, to not consume that and make yourself feel bad. You're having a conversation with somebody and you're not enjoying the conversation. You're talking about a subject that makes you feel bad. You can end the conversation. You're in a career or a business or a relationship that makes you feel bad. You can end that situation. You can sell that part of your business. Some of my businesses, I had some terrible parts of them and I spent all of the time trying to fix them rather than just what I should have done is just say, forget it. It's not worth the stress. And it wasn't worth the stress because of what it was doing to my lack of creative brain. And you make far worse decisions. You do stupid things when you're all stressed. We all know this as well. So you need to look at the triggers in your life and really be honest and say, that's hydrochloric acid in my life. And even for all the motivation and determination, and as hard as you try, you're never going to get there. And so that's what it comes down to. And we also have subconscious triggers, subconscious fears. And again, I teach a process called brain rebalancing because they're subconscious. We don't know what they are, but they trigger this part of the brain. It's like we don't want to think these bad things, but somehow our brain is thinking them anyway, and it's triggering the wrong part. So that's really the name of the game, and it's why the Bible says, be not afraid. That's all you need to do. And when you do that, when you activate the right brain state, it's not a question you say of doing nothing. You become far more productive, because you're inspired to do more. I've done far more and achieved far more in my life, and still am, since my, big moment of losing everything than I ever did before. You become far more creative. I mean, musicians and great artists and even athletes talk about this state of being in the flow or being in the zone, and they say, I just wrote the music down. I just heard it and then I wrote it down. I don't know where it came from. Or all of this stuff was being created around me. You're putting in all this effort, but it's flowing effort. It's not struggle. And again, it's not natural to struggle. It's natural to put in effort and be creative and flowing and be super productive, but it's not natural to struggle. And it's a great feeling when you're using this part of your brain consistently because you see amazing results and you feel amazing. and you feel, yes, this is me being what I'm supposed to be. This is it.
So this is, in essence, what you mean when you say let yourself off the hook.
Absolutely. You have to stop trying to force things in your life, try to set goals through struggle, because all that does is keep you stuck. And I was stuck for years, and you look at most people, and if people listening are really honest, you are stuck, aren't you, with your problems? You're not making any progress, and you're putting in all of this effort. But what you have to do, we have this natural creative energy, which is, we're part of a natural, this energy, that's all everything is energy. We're a part of that. And when we actually unblock that by allowing our creative brain to do its job, and when we operate from this level, our creative brain goes to work to find us the easiest and fastest way to bring us everything we really want in our life. And when I say everything we really want, it's what we really want, not what we think we want. And that's a big difference. That's why goal setting doesn't work. In fact, I could give you the biological reason why it doesn't work, because I was thinking, why is it only 3 or 4% of goals get achieved, like you were covering on your episode? There's actually a biological reason. It's not natural.
Wow. I mean, that's just, and as you go down this pathway of thinking this, I mean, we've kind of focused on mostly business success or personal success, however you want to look at that. But one of the other parts that you discuss is how this also has such a positive influence on your overall relationships. Specifically, we can talk about marriage as well, but just your overall relationships that you have in your life, it can have such a positive impact those as well, correct?
It impacts every area of your life, and it does it in a natural way. You don't need to struggle and try and make things happen. As I say, I do a lot of marriage and relationship coaching. I have some coaching programs, and they're very effective. And many people have saved their marriages. They're really about helping people who are in quite desperate situations facing divorce. But I could never understand why many people used this same information, got a great result, and other people didn't. Their marriage, they didn't manage to heal it. And I realized that it all tied in. It was nothing to do with motivation. If you're facing the end of your marriage, if your husband or wife comes to you and says they want a divorce and you don't want that to happen, you will do what people tell me. I'll do anything, Liam, to save my marriage. You're very motivated. So it's nothing to do with motivation. It's also nothing to do with information, because many people, all of the information that I share is the same. They're in programs, so they have the information. So what is it? It's about the brain state. It's about whether you're using the part of your brain that actually naturally makes sure you do the right things, or whether you're stuck in this reactive state where you're only doing one of those 4 things that we talked about before, all of which make things worse. I mean, if you're in an argument with your husband or your wife and they say they want a divorce or they're not happy or whatever, and you argue with them, what are you doing? You're fighting. And what happens? It only makes it worse, doesn't it? You start shouting. We all know, we've all been in these arguments. You think, why am I even having this argument? This is only making it worse. And why did I say what I just said? Because that was stupid to have said it. The reason you do all those things is you're in this limited reactive state. It's your brain forcing you to do these things. And they're all the wrong things. They have to be. So yes, this is really the way we're designed to live. We're designed to have great relationships. We're designed to have a great life. The rest of nature does. Nature isn't struggling. Nature is being in this state of homeostasis that science has observed endlessly. We're just not aware of how we're using our brain in a way that's really sabotaging our own success.
Well, let me kind of take a step back and think this through, because if you're looking at things differently, you're still going to be interacting with people that, of course, do not, right? Because unless they have accepted the same way that you believe in, the same way you work. I mean, I think about your daily interactions with people. If, especially folks that have come to you for help, they're not thinking the same way. And in many cases, you don't get to have this conversation first. Maybe in your counseling, in your coaching and stuff, yes, you would. But if you're just out and about somewhere and there's potentials for conflict in some situation, how are you negotiating through that, where it would typically be a flight fight, freeze. How are you negotiating through that with someone else who has never been through this process?
Well, here's the thing. You don't need to negotiate with someone, because how many times in your life are you faced with a real threat? Someone coming at you with a knife or wanting to hit you, or a car veering off course about to hit you. It never happens. So every other situation, everything that isn't a threat to your survival, you deal with naturally. So if you meet somebody who's maybe not on your wavelength or having a bad day, you act in a way that their energy doesn't affect you. And in fact, it probably positively affects them. But you don't need to think about it. You don't need to try and figure out how to interact with that person. It all just happens naturally. We just so underestimate and misunderstand who we really are and what incredible intelligence and power and, to use all those buzzwords. But that's the way we're really designed to survive and thrive, no matter what the circumstances, and do it in a natural way, not to try and figure out stuff, not to say to ourselves, well, I've got, I need to improve my communication skills, or I need to do, learn something different. If you need to learn something, your creative brain will make sure that you learn it, but only if you need to learn it, if there's a little gap there. So you find your interactions with people are far smoother because, again, you're not trying to get a response out of people. You're just allowing things to flow naturally. And usually, I'm sure you'd agree, if you're with somebody who's in a bad mood or having a bad day, if you don't put negative energy into that situation, more often than not, it helps them. It makes them feel better, and the whole situation is diffused. You don't need to sit down and negotiate. Things go in their own natural way. And when you get this, you realize you don't need to put in the struggle, because it's about, some people call it faith or trusting or allowing or letting go. But I mentioned it earlier, it's really just about understanding and saying, I don't need to worry about it. Well, if I worry about it, I'm activating the wrong part of my brain. So that's immediately going to make sure the wrong thing is going to happen. But I really don't need to worry about it. I don't need to have any expectation about what's going to happen. I really can trust myself. And the more you experience, the more you do that and you more experience this using your creative brain, the more you see it in action and you go, well, this is, of course, the way it works. And if I could just tell you a really quick story about goal setting, because I've talked to people like no doubt you have, very successful people. And here's something really interesting to ask a really successful person. And I'll use an example of a man I know who, he's retired now, but he had a business. He had 1 million customers in 85 countries around the world. He had 500 staff. He had 2 private jets. He was traveling all around the world. It was the biggest business of its type in the world. And I said to them, how did you do this? How did you achieve such success? And he said what everyone says, I don't know. He said it certainly wasn't on a goals list. He said, if I had a goals list, I would no way have I have put this on my list. It would have been limiting me to do that. So I learned that just allow the next thing to show up, and it will. And this is a pattern. If you are successful people, they might say sometimes, oh, I'm motivated and I have my goals, but they're looking usually for a way to try and explain what they actually do. But what they actually do is they don't know what they do. They just do it. And it's the way nature works, because here's the thing. If we say one of the laws is biological efficiency, the least amount of energy expended to get the maximum amount of result. Now imagine when I was lying on my mother's couch there, and I used some method to find out what my goals should be and what would really make me happy. And I wrote down and I figured it out. Your ultimate goal is to buy your own yacht, sail around the world with 2 businesses that you manage from the yacht, then start to study and learn about how the brain and use all of your own experiences and how, sharing it, coaching with other, and what you learn through coaching other people as well, to come to quite a different understanding about how we achieve results we do through using this natural mechanism of our brain. And you're going to be sharing it with people all around the world and really making a difference. Now, if I'd looked at that, I would have thought, well, whoever came up with that is insane. For 2 reasons. One is, I never thought I could achieve it. I would have looked at that and said, sailor, yacht, what? Brain, what? And the second reason I would have doubted it was I didn't even know that that's what I wanted. I would have had no clue that's what I wanted. So here's the point. Your creative brain knows what you need to be your best. But if it was to tell you, what would you do? I know what I would have done. I would have questioned it. I would have doubted it. I would have said, no, that can't be right. Hang on, I need to go and analyze this. What is this about, and just make sure before I do anything, I need to make sure it's the right thing. That's not efficiency of energy. You're wasting all of that energy, you're wasting all that time. You're not doing what you need to do to move towards it. And then maybe you think, well, I'll have a plan. Maybe I don't need to know what the end goal is. I'll just have a plan. I'll have the next 10 steps, and you figure out another process to work out what your 10 steps should be to a small goal that you've set for yourself. And you look at that, and what do? And it comes to you, if you like. Again, you go, step number 3, I'm not sure if that's the right step. And it says it leads to step number 4, but I don't know if it will. So I need to go away and analyze this and think about it and ask somebody else or go online and research it. You're wasting all of that energy. You're not doing what you need to do. You're not taking the steps. So the most biologically efficient way for you to achieve homeostasis, for your brain to ensure that you reach your optimum state, is for your brain just to show you one step at a time. The very next step, and this is where this whole idea of mindfulness and being present comes in. That's all you need to do. Just focus on the present moment, not think about anything else other than this moment, which admittedly, when you think about it, is all that exists anyway, this moment. And when you take that next step, the next one will be shown to you, and then the next one. And you don't know what direction you're going to go in, and it's probably going to be like it was for me and so many people I've helped, somewhere completely different to where they thought it would be, but they achieve, like I have, this place where this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm glad I didn't know where it was, because I would never have been able to figure this out. So that's the reason, dare I say it, why that's the real reason, the biological reason why goal setting doesn't work. Because in a state of stress, worry, and anxiety, those 4 things your brain can do, it can't tell you what you really need. And your creative brain doesn't really want to show you what you need, because it knows you're going to doubt it, and it knows you're not going to take any action. And it's completely inefficient to do it that way.
That's so funny. As you're going through, I'm thinking about, you don't make a plan, because if you make a plan, then, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing here. If you don't make a plan, then you don't stunt your growth, as it were. You don't keep from achieving things because they weren't one of your goals. So therefore, and I start thinking about the first thing somebody would say to that is, but that's the fear of the unknown. Well, now you've done use the fear word again. And because you use the fear word, now all of a sudden you realize that this is not going to work for you, because you put yourself back in that position. Right? It's just a vicious cycle then of you're not letting yourself go to achieve the things that you can achieve because you're afraid of achieving the things you can achieve.
Fear is the enemy. That's what makes you want to know what to do, or to try and figure stuff out, or know where you should be headed, or have a vision, or all of those things are only driven by a fear. If you knew that, hey, where I'm going is all going to be perfect, that's the way I'm biologically designed to be. All I need to do is be here and enjoy this moment. And everything's going to take care of itself. Do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Remember that bit. If you knew that's how we biologically worked, then you would do that, and you would realize that anything else is based on fear. Imagine getting out of a motor car when you're going on a ride every 5 seconds just to check that the engine was still running and the tires were still there. It would be crazy, wouldn't it? You just say, well, I know how a car works. I don't need to think about it. I just need to enjoy the ride. The brain works in exactly the same way. It's not like it's anything complicated. This is actually quite simple. It's supposed to be simple because it's natural. But we've just overcomplicated everything our entire life by learning all these things that are completely wrong. And somebody said to me once, well, how do you know you're right? Well, why is it that nobody else talks like this? And I said, well, there's been countless times through history where all of the great minds and everybody knew something to be the truth that was a complete lie. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where every great scientist, philosopher, person on Earth knew that the Earth was flat. And they'd written books to prove it and everything else. But it turns out it wasn't true. So maybe everything we've been told about who we are and how we're supposed to live, is it possible that could not be true as well?
Yeah, I just read a little article that I thought was interesting, that when Einstein proved his theory of relativity, over 100 scientists signed a letter saying that he was wrong. That we know he isn't now, but at that time, over 100 scientists said, no, this is not true. And his comeback was, it didn't take 100. If one of them could have proved that it was wrong, that's all it would have taken. but no one was disproving it. They were just saying it was wrong, right? Because they couldn't necessarily disprove it because it was correct. They just didn't like what the results were.
Well, I'm no Einstein.
Yeah.
I'm no Einstein, but I'm happy to be proven wrong that problems are good for us, or problems help us to survive biologically, because I don't, or that goals help you, have a happier, better, more natural life. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but the evidence to me doesn't seem to be there.
So let me ask you how this, and I get it. This is brain functionality. This is the parts of the brain. This is the way we were designed. But we certainly have people that think differently. We have people that are, like I'm a pretty outgoing person. I'm not afraid to speak in public. I go out, and obviously I have a podcast. I do all these things. But then you also have people that are kind of what we would consider like an intellectual. They don't necessarily, they'd rather sit at a desk. They'd rather do research. They're step by step. That's just the process. A lot of scientists are that way. How does someone's, I'll say personality, but that's not really what I'm trying to say there. What I'm really trying to say is their makeup, the way that they approach life, as far as very structured. They don't make any snap decisions. They, once again, everything's got to be step by step. Whereas other people are a lot more spontaneous. Right? I'm a little more spontaneous. My wife is very structured. So in those cases, have you noticed a difference in how accepting someone can be of this, or maybe they're already naturally doing some of this if they have a certain type of personality or nature to themselves versus others?
Well, everybody's got a different personality and a different nature, and obviously, and the wonderful thing about when you start to live in this using your creative brain a lot more, your awareness raises and you start to see the truth. You start to see that the reason we live in an infinite universe is because it is infinite. So there's an infinite variety of people who have all different personalities and different motivations and different things going on. But we all have the same basic structure. We all have the same basic machine. So it doesn't matter for who it is. If you identify the truth that if you've got fear that is stopping you from being the best of who you are, that's the only thing you need to acknowledge. That's the only thing you need to work on. Because your natural personality, or who you naturally are, that's going to come out when you use your creative brain. That's because your creative brain's not there to turn you into something that you're not. It's to turn you into the best version of you, which means whatever your DNA, because this is based on our DNA, which, again, we haven't got time to get into that, I guess, but basically what your brain is attempting to do biologically is to replicate your DNA by ensuring that your DNA is as good as it, or is the manifestation of your DNA, the expression of your DNA, which is you and your personality and your body, that is what it is designed to make as good as it can be. So your DNA is like a blueprint of who you are, and your brain is trying to make that blueprint come into reality, because that's what's going to give you the greatest chance of survival. Not being somebody else, not trying to be somebody different, being the best version of who you are. So it doesn't matter what your personality is. Once you accept or understand your only enemy is fear, and it's about maintaining the right brain state, which the Bible would call faith. It says just have faith, believe. But what happens when you have faith and believe? You feel good. You trust. You're not afraid. You're not worried. In other words, you're not activating the wrong part of the brain. So that's the great thing about this. You have no expectation about the way people are. You just know when they deal with this, they're going to be the best of who they are. They're going to be the greatest expression of them. And there's a place for everybody in the world. There has to be. We want 8 billion different people. That's what makes it marvelous. You also lose your judgment of people, don't you, when you like that? Because you just see, well, of course somebody's going to have that opinion or that belief or that way of thinking or whatever it is, because there's 8 billion different, there's going to be that variety. There's bound to be somebody who thinks like that. It's nothing wrong with it. It's the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to have this infinite diversity.
Yeah, I get it. That makes perfect sense whenever you explain it that way. Yeah, obviously you're going to have lots of people thinking in a different way. The thing that's going to tie them together, right, is the acceptance that you can't let fear rule your life. You've got to overcome that and realize what it is so that you can access your creative side. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Well, I want to touch real quick on the marriage side, because this is the latest book that you have put out is Marriage Uncounseling, a counterintuitive approach to healing relationships and bringing back love. So this is obviously near and dear to your heart. You put a book out about it. So how does this relate then towards that? And talk a little bit about what your book is about, because this may be something that someone out there, one of the listeners says, hey, this is something I need to get.
Well, here's the thing. When you think about problems in relationships, couples not doing too well, maybe the communication's not good and lots of arguments or lack of intimacy, or they're just not on the right track with each other. What tends to happen is people go along to counseling to try and fix the marriage. And what happens, or what are they actually doing? They're focusing on the problems. They're focusing on what they don't want. And when you focus on what you don't want, what happens to you emotionally? You feel bad. And you think, oh, I just want to solve this problem. I need to heal my marriage. I need to fix this. And it's all based on fear, because you're saying to yourself, if I don't fix this, I'm never going to be happy. So there's this constant focus on trying to fix problems. And as we've already talked about with the brain, it's a biological thing. People say whatever you focus on, you get more of. This is why, because you're staying in the stuck brain state that only knows how to create more problems, to do those 4 things that make things worse. So what you need to do, and what my book's about really, is saying you need to focus on doing the things that are the solutions, the things in your relationship that maybe you haven't done for a while that actually made it work. And there are one clue to that, and I have a lot of exercises and things for people to think about in the book, things they can do on their own or together as a couple. But one of the things is to think back to when you first got together with your spouse. In other words, when things were going well. Now, what was going on then? You didn't have problems. You weren't stressed. You weren't worried. You weren't trying to fix problems. And things were going really well. But you were also doing things differently to what you're doing now. So you didn't argue with each other. You didn't complain. You didn't criticize. You didn't tell them that what they should do. And a whole lot of other things. You didn't say we need to work on our marriage. You didn't do any of that stuff. You just enjoyed being in the moment. And the reason you were enjoying being in the moment is you weren't afraid. You weren't thinking, oh, I hope this relationship lasts, and if it doesn't, I'll never find another one, and I need to make it work. You were just being your normal, natural self. That's what you were taking to the relationship, and that's why it worked. So the book's about helping you understand you need to undo all the bad habits, because it's only the bad habits that are causing the problems. It's only the fear, stress, worry, and anxiety, and what it does to your brain, and therefore what it does to your behavior, that's causing the problems. And instead of trying to fix the problems, and you need to fix the cause of the problems, and the cause is simply the way you're using your brain. And I use the analogy sometimes of you come home from work one day and there's a crack on the wall in your living room, and you say, oh, I've got a problem there, and you rush out to the hardware store and you get all the stuff you need, and you go on YouTube and figure out how to plaster over the crack, and you go, great, I've fixed the problem. But you come home the next day and you've got 2 cracks in the wall, and again you put all this effort into fixing it, and every day you come home there's more cracks in the wall, and you're spending more and more effort trying to plaster over the cracks, until someone says to you, look, there's a problem with the foundations. And when you fix the foundations, you'll never have another crack, and you don't need to worry about, instead of putting all that effort into fixing the symptom of the problem is the way things are set up, the foundation of your, in this case, relationship. And again, this is what I cover in the book. What are the foundations like? People never look at that. They're busy trying to counsel themselves, if you like, and fix the problems. The answers to problems are never from trying to fix the problems. The answers to problems are from where the problems came from in the first place. So that's what the book's about.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. I love that analogy, because I kind of knew where you were going there. And every day you come back, there's a little bit. It
sounds crazy, doesn't it?
It
to do that.
It's logical. That's the whole thing. Is it's logical, but it's logical in hindsight sometimes, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, why didn't I see this? I should have understood this to begin with. Because we can look back at things sometimes more clearly than we can see in the moment. And we can also see solutions to things that we didn't. Once again, because looking back, whatever has happened, you're not afraid of it anymore because it's already happened. And now you're able to use that. What I'm seeing here is you're able to use that part of the brain that you couldn't use then because you let fear overcome you. And you may have been able to take care of the situation then instead of looking back at it and seeing it clearly.
Yeah.
Because people do say, you know, hindsight's 2020, right? Well, now sight potentially could be 2020 if you're thinking through things the proper way.
Well, here's a really interesting way of describing what you just mentioned, which is, why is it that often we can see, you know, if we have a friend who's got a problem in their relationship, we can see absolutely what they should do to fix it. And they go, I'm having all these problems. And you say to them, look, you're in the wrong relationship. You need to quit. You need to stop arguing. And you used to be good for each other, but you're not good for each other anymore. You're never going to, it's no longer the right relationship. But they can't see that. And they're saying, no, I can fix it. And we just need to try a bit harder. Now, it's not they don't want to see it. Their brain is not letting them see it because they're in this stuck state. So their brain can't show them the true picture, the real solution to anything. So we can see it for other people because, of course, we're not in that state. We're not feeling stress, worry, and anxiety, so we can see the answer. So again, this is all pointing to the fact that it's your brain. It will either show you the answer, it will make sure you do the right things, or it's going to keep you stuck. Your only job is to say, I've got to keep that fear, stress, worry, and anxiety. I've got to find out all the reasons. And some of them are thoughts, particularly in a relationship, we're worried about how it might end. What's the effect it's going to have on the children? I'm going to be a failure. I'm going to look back with regrets because I'll never find anyone as good as this, and I'll be old and I'll be alone and no one else will love me, and I'll look back and all I'll think is, if I'd only just tried a little bit harder, I could have fixed that. It's all fear-based, and that's what keeps you stuck. That's it. And that's why I called it uncounseling, because forget trying to solve the problems. Change your brain state and the problems will solve themselves. That's natural biology. It's the most efficient way as well, which is the way it works.
Yeah. I mean, you're trying to put a lot of people out of work there, buddy. There's a lot of marriage counselors going, don't listen to him. Don't listen to him.
Well, my own coaching, people, they want to sign me up for like 20 sessions. I don't do that. I have one or two, and I don't focus on the problems. I help people identify their fears that are keeping them stuck. And sometimes, I get wonderful messages from people who say, I came to you because I really thought I needed to heal my marriage. And I was determined, and I realized I only wanted to heal it out of fear, that I was just, it was wrong. Because what we do is we think if we can achieve something, that will make us happy. So I've got no money, or I've got a miserable relationship. I need to be rich. That will make me happy. I need to fix this relationship for me to be happy. Those things aren't true. Your brain has got another idea for you about what needs you to be happy. And in fact, if you're struggling to achieve a goal, here's the other thing your brain does, which is biological efficiency. It makes something hard for you when it's not supposed to be what you're supposed to have. It's saying to you, look, I'm going to make this really hard for you and I'll make sure you don't achieve it because it's not what you're supposed to have. So stop struggling, stop resisting reality, stop putting in all this crazy bad energy and bad effort, because I'm trying to prove to you that it's not what you should have. Take the path of least resistance. We give that a bad name for some reason. We think it's being weak and giving up. That's being wise and sensible, is taking the path of least resistance and going towards what actually works. So it all ties in with biology, and it all ties in with fear. And most of the time it's subconscious fear that people have, and they don't realize this is what's holding them back. And that's really what you need to make life's mission, is to say, I'm going to find out what my fears are and I'm going to get rid of them, because then everything else will, all the cracks will disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is absolutely amazing stuff, Liam. I am just blown away by the information that you provided me today. And folks out there, I hope that you really gathered some great information today and realized what a huge block fear is to your life, and probably to most anyone's life, because it's just naturally, when something doesn't go the way we want it to, we naturally have various reactions. And even anger many times is based in fear in some way, shape, or form. So a lot of the reactions that you have are fear. Sadness a lot of times is also based in fear. There can be so many things that, if looking back, you see fear. as really the basis of what it is. Now, there are various different ways that you can reach out and get in touch or learn more about Liam. One of those is to go out to his website, liamnaden.com. That's liamnaden.com, liamnaden.com. He also has a free webinar that you can check out on how to unlock your brain's hidden power. And you can find that on, as we mentioned multiple times today, Let Yourself Off the Hook. And that's letyourselfoffthehook.com. You can go check that out. And then, of course, he's got his latest book. All this information is right there on your webpage. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, and actually, I've just put something together which I'd really like to offer your listeners and viewers. It's a mini audio course. You know, we have this thing about aha moments. So if people are sitting listening to this or watching, what I really suggest you do right now is just open, if you're on your phone, open your email and send an email to course, COURSE, at liamnaden.com. And I'll send you this really powerful but simple and fairly short mini course on how to unlock this creative brain, because you know that we've all had those aha moments. Wouldn't it be fascinating if you could actually have those aha moments at will, rather than just be random events? There's actually a biological process with how your brain works, how it generates aha moments. So if you're dealing with a problem, you use this technique, which actually has been described throughout history, but not many people know, too many people know about it, and very few people use it. You can actually use this to come up with the answer to any problem you have pretty well instantly by shifting the way you use your brain. So that's why I've created this. It's all free, but it's a really powerful technique. People have got a lot out of it. It's just simply, if you flick an email to course, COURSE, at liamnaden.com, you'll get instant access to it. See what you think. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, this is also the course that is right here on your front page of liamnaden.com on the top right-hand corner. It is a free course.
Yeah. I can find it on the website as well. Yeah,
on the website, right? So you can also, if you happen to be at your laptop listening, or on your home computer, or I guess even on your phone, if you didn't want to wait for the email, you could go out to liamnaden.com. Free audio mini course right there. I just did so I am now enrolled. Got my time to finish up this course. So I'll go through it myself, because I am very interested in taking even a deeper dive into this, Liam.
Thank you. I think you'll be a bit intrigued.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
You've really, I know that you've barely even touched the tip of the iceberg today during the time that we've had. So, do yourself a favor, folks. If this is just in any way, shape, or form sent a spark of curiosity about what he's talking about and about this process, and how to remove fear from your life and remove fear from blocking you from making good, solid decisions and living your best life. There's no cost to take this next step. Just go and check out the course and learn how you can help make these decisions better every single day. Liam, thank you so very much for being on the show today. I really, really appreciate you taking time out to explain all this stuff to us.
Absolute pleasure, Harlan. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Okay, folks, thank you so much once again for being with us on the Health and Wealth Power Hour. Don't forget, you can catch me every single week, 10 a.m. Central Time, on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all across there, on my weekly Broker's Edge Kickstart, where we talk about what's going on in the healthcare and health insurance world. And then also you can catch the monthly Why Does Healthcare Suck series. If you have listened to the ones recently, we have been talking about men's and women's health. We're going to continue down that pathway here for a couple of more episodes as we bring in special guests on certain aspects of health, because these are problems we see in the U.S. healthcare industry, U.S. healthcare system, that are not specified towards specific sexes. And a lot of times these are taboo subjects that people do not talk about, certainly at work, and in fact may be afraid to talk about to their doctor or their family. So we're touching on that, giving you some tips on how to access those. Thanks again for being with us. We'll catch you next time on the Health and Wealth Power Hour. We are out of here.